This entitled mum thinks she can park wherever she likes, including a private parking spot. But this parking spot owner has some revenge planned against this entitled mum. Happy birthday if today's your birthday, and on with the revamped show. I work in construction as the foreman for a new house build. The location is kinda strange. The house is 200 feet up a hill via a footpath only. All of our materials have to come up this footpath by hand. It's a pain in the butt to manually carry, quite literally, an entire house up the hill. One of our saving graces is having the 2 parking spots on the street at the bottom of this hill marked with official no parking signs. Unfortunately, there is an elementary school about half a block away, and the parents of children seem to regularly, at least twice a day, think it's okay to park in our spots. Now, I consider myself a reasonable person, so if someone is parked in the spots and we don't have a delivery or a need to park a truck, I will let it go. If we need the spots and there's someone parked there, however, I will ask them to move nicely, and most of the time, they do so immediately. Until today. I get a phone call from the lumber delivery truck that is en route to our location. He says he'll be there in about 2 or 3 minutes. I let him know that I will meet him at the street and make sure he has a space to park. He's carrying all of the material to frame the roof of our house, which is a lot of really big lumber and will take easily an hour to bring up the hill. So naturally, I didn't want him parked in the middle of the street with his hazards on for an hour, when we have a perfectly good parking spot for him. As I begin my trip down the hill, I notice there is a school parent sitting in her car idling. Assuming she's just waiting to pick up her child, I walk up to her car and politely let her know that she is parked in a no parking zone, and we really need her to clear it to park a delivery truck. She scoffs at me and rudely states back, "I'll be a few minutes, and your truck isn't here. Take a chill pill, dude." Before I can respond, a giant lumber truck comes around the corner and I wave to him, and then gesture towards him to the woman in the car, who has now put her window back up to ignore me. I put on my best customer service smile and wave at her through the window. She put it down halfway and angrily shouts, "What?" By now the truck has pulled up alongside her car, and I politely ask her again, with a stronger tone of voice, to move her vehicle, reminding her that she is illegally parked in a towaway zone. Then she gives me this wonderful idea. She says, "Can't you guys just unload around me? It's not that hard." I give her another smile and walk away, a brilliant plan forming in my head. I instruct the delivery driver to park as closely to her as possible and block her in with the porta potty that is at one end of our reserved spots and the parked car that is parked just adjacent to our spots on the other end. He smiles because he immediately gets what I'm trying to do and proceeds to expertly block this lady and her car into a little 2 parking spot jail. We unstrap the lumber and my guys begin humping material up the hill. Meanwhile, I call the police parking enforcement to let them know the situation. At this point in time, I wasn't trying to get her in trouble. I just wanted a record of why we were blocking part of the street so we don't get in trouble with the city. The very friendly traffic officer lets me know that she can be there in about 30 minutes and deal with the situation for me. Wonderful. As we continue to unload lumber, the child of the parent shows up, and wouldn't you know it, Mum is just now realizing that the lumber truck is parked so close she can't get out of her driver door to meet her kid. She awkwardly clambers across the inside of her car and stumbles out the passenger door, shooting glaring looks at me and the truck driver in the process. She loads her kid into the back and then begins to realize that she has no way of leaving. She comes storming up to myself and the driver and states, "I'm in a big hurry. You need to move your darn truck right now so I can go." Before I can respond, the driver gets a grin on his face and says, "Ma'am, in order to unload the lumber on the truck, we had to unstrap it, and per our company policy, I'm not allowed to move the truck with any unsecured load on it. Sorry." This sends her into near aneurysm levels of blood pressure. Meanwhile, I can barely contain my laughter. "Screw your policy. I have somewhere to be," she barks back at him. At this point, with impeccably convenient timing, the parking enforcement officer shows up and parks behind the truck. She doesn't see the officer arrive, and while the officer is still getting out of her vehicle, I just casually say, "Can't you just pull out around it? It's not that hard." With the biggest grin I've ever had, I watch as she realizes that I just used her line on her. "Screw you!" she yells, and storms back into her car and angrily clambers back in through the passenger door and into the driver's seat. At this point, the officer officer is walking up to myself and the driver. Before she can even introduce herself, the mum in the car slams it into reverse and stomps on the gas, crashing into our porta potty and knocking it over, and throws the car into drive and tries to mount to the curb and drive on the sidewalk. The officer, driver, and I are staring in disbelief as she gets halfway over the curb and gets stuck. I can hear her screaming obscenities over the idling truck from inside her car. The officer promptly walks up to the door of the car and orders her out. My favorite part of the entire thing is watching her face go to shock as she realizes she just did all of that in front of a police officer. She gets slapped in cuffs as the parking officer calls for a second unit, and she is promptly sat on the very curb she tried to drive over. She sits on the curb yelling to the now 2 officers about how we told her she could stay there and that we never asked her to move. The traffic officer responds that she was the one who was originally called when she first refused to move and that she already knows what's going on. While myself and the driver are giving a report to the second officer, my guys finish moving the remainder of the lumber and the driver finishes his statement and takes off to go back to the yard. By the end of the ordeal, she was arrested, charged with child endangerment. Her kid was in the back of the car the whole time, reckless driving, destruction of property, the porta potty, and driving on a suspended license. On top of all that, she also got her car towed. The kid went home with his grandma, and she went to spend some quality time in a cell. I never expected her to actually heed my advice, to just pull out around it, but I think next time she'll probably think twice about parking in a towaway zone, if she ever gets a license again. A lot of these stories seem to take place with people just doing their everyday jobs. People just trying to provide value to others who need their services. Even if the job seems kinda mundane, like delivering lumber, they're performing a virtuous act as they're helping someone else who couldn't do it themselves. That's why they have the job. I think realizing that makes it all the worse when entitled parents come in and make life a pain for everyone else just trying to do their everyday job. I work in a movie theater, been there for nearly 16 years. We have a private party room upstairs that people can reserve for birthday parties or minor functions and play DVD or Blu-ray movies. In order to reserve the room, you have to put down a $25 deposit. I'm usually the person that helps run the parties, and I've been doing it for around 12 to 13 years. Plus I love playing with the kids. But my story takes place roughly 8 years ago. Now to the story. I'd come a little earlier that day to work, so I can set up some of the party room and got everything ready to go. I'm talking with my manager when I see a woman get out of her car and come up to the door. I go over to the door, asking if she is the party holder. She says yes, and I let her in. Enter the entitled mum.
Hi, I'm here to set up for my child's party.
She looks at me kind of funny, but I don't worry about it. Yes, I'll take you upstairs and help you set up. Her face is now one of some disdain. Once again, I brush it off. Entitled mum doesn't really talk to me as we head upstairs and I show her the room. She nods at the room, liking how the chairs and tables were arranged.
Now can you get the person to help me decorate my child's party?
I smile. That would be me. Her disdain turns to disgust.
You're working it? I don't want you. I want somebody pretty and thin.
I'm by no means a supermodel, and I am kind of a big girl. I'm sorry, ma'am. We are going to be very busy today and need all of the staff. Plus, I'm the only person trained to do this. At the time, the equipment was mildly complex to use and could be easily messed up.
I don't care. I want someone pretty. You're going to scare the kids because you look so ugly.
My patience was running kind of low by this point, and I am a little sensitive about my weight. Yet I put on my brave face. Ma'am, I'm sorry you feel that way, but we have no other available staff. Then comes every public worker's favorite phrase.
I want to speak to your manager. Someone like you shouldn't be allowed in public view.
She walks down the stairs and I quickly follow after, getting over my initial shock. She makes her way to the box office while I book it to the manager's office. I quickly explain what is going on to my manager, my hero, and point to the entitled mum. Needless to say, I'm nearly in tears because of EM's attitude.
I want someone better. She doesn't know what she's doing.
She shoves me aside a bit to get into my manager's face.
She lied to me, saying there was no one else to work my party.
Actually, she's correct. We are extremely busy and no one else is trained to do the parties. My manager is calm because she already knows what she is going to do about EM.
This is effing ridiculous. There's no way I am going to be around that ugly fat beard. pretty. I don't want my children around people like her.
My manager just smiles and nods. That's fine. Have a nice day. She turns away from the entitled mom and goes back into her office.
But what about the other person to help me?
You're not getting anyone. I'm canceling your reservation for the room.
You can't do that. What about my party? You have to give me the room.
You said you didn't want her to work your party. You insulted her several times, and you cussed at me for no reason. You can leave now.
I'm not going anywhere. I want my deposit back, and you have to give me the room for free because of all the stress you put me under.
Actually, I don't. The contract you signed says the deposit was non-refundable, unless the party is cancelled 24 hours prior. You wasted my time as well as my employee's time, plus you insulted her. We do not have to put up with that. I'm telling you to get off the property or I'll call the police.
Screw you and screw that fat woman. I am going to sue this freaking craphole.
The entitled mom storms out. That's the first time something like that's happened to me, and I'm extremely proud that my manager didn't cave and stuck up for me. I work at a large chain of pizza restaurants. Let's call it Pomino's Pizza. Like most places, we get a few prank calls a week from preteens. Usually it doesn't bother me, and I'll go along with it because it gives me something to do when it's slow. But being a Friday night, we were busy, and I wasn't having it. The events. Hi, thanks for calling Pomino's Pizza. How can I help you tonight? The kid was trying, but not succeeding, to hold in his laughter. Hey, is Mr. Wall there? No sir, there isn't anyone named that who works here. What about Mrs. Wall? Nope, none of those either. Then how is your building standing up? There's laughter from him in the background. This went on a couple more times, with classics such as, can I place an order to your sister's house? And the classic, is your refrigerator running? Then you better go get it. Finally, I had had enough. I let the kids know I was done playing their games. Alright, look, it says that your dad's name is Bob. We keep names and addresses of past customers and their orders in the computer for future orders just to speed up the process. If you don't stop this, I'll give him a call and let him know what's been going on. Usually, this would stop the kids. I knew it did back in my earlier days of being a dumb kid, but some people just can't be bothered and have to push the envelope a bit too far. I know you won't. Go ahead and call him. Oh boy, he didn't have to ask me twice. I hang up the phone and get back to work for a little bit, knowing that the kid will be camped at the phone to answer it for the next 15 minutes or so. The compliance. I get back to work free of prank calls from the kid. I should have left it there, having solved the problem. But hey, the customer is always right, and at Pomino's Pizza, we always give the customer what they want. After the supper rush is done, around 45 minutes to an hour later, I fulfill the request. Hello, this is employee from Pomino's. How are you doing tonight? Not too bad. What's the reason for your call? Unfortunately, we've been getting a number of calls from this number. We're really busy and it's pushing customers away because of the wait times. Can you please have a talk with who I assume is your son and ask him to knock it off? Oh goodness, I'm so sorry. I'll have a chat to him and his buddies. Thank you so much, and thanks for choosing Pomino's. At this point, I think the story is done. Kid will get a talking to, won't do it again, and that'll be the end of it. Boy, was I mistaken. Around 30 minutes later, a man and a chubby kid around 12 years old come into the store. I don't think much of it, thinking they're just getting a few slices for a snack. They come up to the counter and ask for me. Yes, I'm that person. I think my son has something to say to you. The kid is visibly nervous. He keeps looking around the store and won't look me in the eye. I'm very sorry for calling you. I know you're busy and it won't happen again. Then to further the awkward suffering of the kid, who I kind of feel bad for at this point, the dad places an order for carryout and sits in our small eatery section where the kid has to try and avoid eye contact with me for the next 20 minutes. He left me a good tip too. At Pomino's Pizza, the customer always gets what they want. There's something really satisfying about getting revenge, but doing it in a way where they're getting exactly what they asked for. I love how chill the dad was too. Just orders a pizza and just starts eating it there while his son just has to think about what he's done. I don't know if this would stop the kid or just making him a little smarter so next time he calls from a different number. I live in an apartment. I've got 3 red-eared sliders as my pets. They're the cutest things ever, and I love them with all my heart. I regularly take them for walks. I just hold one of them in my hand and walk around, and I show them around. They love it. Okay, so today I was carrying around Uguay, my oldest turtle. He'll be 3 this June, and showing him how metal felt, and letting him walk around on mud and other good stuff. So I'm carrying Uguay and going to a friend's flat to talk for a bit, and as I'm holding Uguay, me, and walking up the stairs to a friend's house, this girl, entitled Daughter, who looks like she was 10 to 12 years old, comes up to me and says, "Is that a turtle?" I smile and answer in the positive. She asks if she could pet him, so I agree to let her feel his shell. She just drags her nails across his shell. You could hear her nails scraping his shell. Oogway was visibly upset and kicks out, which is his way of saying he's upset. I say, "He doesn't like that, please stop doing it. He's uncomfortable." She gets a bit annoyed and asks me where I got him. Now people usually ask me this, and a lot of people mistreat their turtles or abandon them, so I tell her that I got them from a pet store that was shutting down. She asks me where the pet store was located, so I say it was shut down. She turns around and goes to what I assume is her home. Anyways, after 10 or 15 minutes, I'm walking back down to my flat, and I have to pass that floor. Should have taken the lift instead. Entitled Daughter and her entitled mum, we'll call her EM, stops me. The conversation goes something like this.
"Hi, my daughter seems to like your turtle, and we'd like to know if you'd be able to give him to us."
Why would I do that?
"You've got 3 others. You'll still have 2 more.
I don't even know how she knew I had 3 turtles. I never mentioned it.
We can pay you 500 rupees.
Literally $7 for you Americans.
For him, if that's fine with you."
I'm sorry, but Oogway isn't up for adoption or sale or anything. You can check the shelters if you want to get a pet for your daughter. I'm sure it'll help the animal too. At this point, Oogway felt uncomfortable and started urinating on my hand, another stress thing that I'm used to.
"I'm sure we'd be able to take better care of your turtle than you are."
The entitled mum just grabs Oogway out of my hands and Oogway bites her, which can hurt. I'm sure it hurt. And she just screeches. Didn't even yelp in pain or anything. Straight up screeches. This was drawing a bit of attention, since the apartment is quite small, so I just shove them aside and walk away, because what else am I supposed to do? Should have done something else maybe, but it didn't hit me then. Also, there's a family moving into my apartment, and I pray to God it's not them. We see again from this entitled parent, they have this really weird way of valuing things. It's like, well, you have 3 turtles, so because you can spare one, then giving up one means nothing to you. Even if he didn't pay a lot for the turtles, there's a complete disregard for any sentimental value or connection that he might have to them. The fact that he's taking care of them. And you just know that turtle would not have lasted long had it been in the hands of that entitled daughter. They would have been knocking on the door the next week asking for the second one. Seems like our hero knew how to defend himself and his turtles against this entitled parent. He must have thrown a few stock images at her. Maybe he spoke to her in a really calm voice. I hear entitled parents hate that kind of thing. And that's why you're here, my Voicey veterans, to get equipped for battle, defend your property, speak calmly, live well. Submit your story to be read on the channel at voiceyherestories@gmail.com and join our Voicey veteran community at r/VoiceyHere. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell to never miss an episode. Alright, Voicey veterans, I'll see you in the next one.